Okay guys, welcome back to the final video in this series on marketing and business, the second outcome of Unit 2. Key Knowledge 10, and we're going to talk about social responsibility in marketing here. Okay, social responsibility, the most common theme, as I've said many times, throughout this whole Year 11 and Year 12 course. So here is our study design as always, and here is what it says we need to know about social responsibility as it relates to marketing. So you can see there a couple of things, issues regarding establishing a customer base, such as green marketing. So there's a couple of different things we're going to look at in this video, so that we cover that key knowledge dot point thoroughly. So first off, let's just go back to social responsibility. It's worth just reminding ourselves, okay, because this is the most important concept that you need to understand on this entire course, because it does impact on pretty much every single outcome that we talk about. It's already impacted or been included in some of the past ones. We've talked about it multiple times, and it will continue to do so throughout the entire Year 12 course as well. So you really need to be familiar with this one. So let's just go back to the 2019 end of Year 12 Business Management exam, the examiner's report. And the comments were to achieve both marks. This was defining CSR for 2 marks. To achieve both marks, students needed to show their understanding that CSR means going beyond the legal requirements placed on a business. Okay, so that's the first thing really important to note. If you are, adhering to the law or operating within the law, operating to the law, that is not being socially responsible. Okay, that's just meeting legal requirements. To be deemed to be socially responsible, you need to be going above and beyond legal requirements. Above and beyond, that's absolutely key. And then the second part of that definition, the context in which that could arise. So, for example, environmental or social obligations. And it gives you there, that was VCAR's example of a high scoring response. So it might be worth jotting that one down. And again, maybe memorizing that one. It's something that you'll use again and again and again, and it's probably more chance of being asked to define that one in an end of Year 12 exam than any other term or concept on the entire course. So whilst I say it's not a great strategy to learn rote fashion definitions, for this one, you might want to make an exception. So back to this key knowledge dot point. Now we've talked about CSR. So there's 2 aspects to it. First off, how does it impact a business's ability to grow a customer base? And then it mentions something called green marketing, which we'll get onto at the end of this video. So as with everything a business does, it does need to take into account CSR with regards to its marketing actions, its marketing plans. Okay, like I said, CSR touches on all aspects of a business. If a business's marketing is seen by the public as being unethical or dishonest, obviously it's going to negatively impact the reputation, the image of that business, and then clearly that's going to reduce the ability to grow a customer base. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, if there's anything negative out there about you, and if that's led from people view your marketing as being dishonest or unethical in some way, obviously maybe your existing customers who make up your customer base might be turned away and go to competitors. And anybody who is not yet buying from you, who you're trying to convince to buy from you, is probably not going to. So this is how it impacts our ability to grow a customer base. So how do we apply social responsibility into marketing? I think with some other aspects of the course, it's quite easy to make the links, but I do think making links to marketing is sometimes a little bit more challenging. Basically, it boils down to this. All marketing communication should be honest and transparent. Simple as, okay? Don't exaggerate the benefits of your product and its ability to fulfill customer needs. Okay, if you're being honest, transparent with your marketing, you're probably going to be staying on the safe side of social responsibility. Some examples, might be actually easier to look at some examples of advertising which are not socially responsible to kind of highlight what you want to avoid, basically. So things like hidden fees. So if there are extra fees which might be applicable, which are not specified in an advertised price, such as things like activation fees for cell phones, pre-delivery inspection charges on a new car. That's a real dodgy one. When you buy a new car, there's all sorts of charges they add on. And some of them are real dodgy, and they try to hide it by kind of incorporating in other figures that you could argue, and people do argue, is probably not being socially responsible. Misuse of terms. So things like light and natural, I guess light in terms of, in terms of diets, low sugar, low fat, that sort of thing. And natural, that's a word, because again, a lot of marketing, and we'll talk about green marketing, and this touches on that, people like to buy natural products. So, if you've got a lot of chemicals and stuff in your product, and you're advertising it as natural, perhaps that could be deemed to be not socially responsible. Misleading illustrations, so showing a product in a picture as bigger than it actually is, could be an example of that. Bait and switch. This is a very specific thing. So this is advertising one product and then substituting in a similar product at a high price, claiming that the originally advertised product is actually unavailable, has been sold out. Okay, that's quite dodgy if the business goes into that knowing that that's what they're doing. Going out of business sales. So basically raising the prices for a merchandise that was already on sale and then marking them down. Okay, so when you are advertising a sale, you're only reducing the price from an artificially inflated price that you kind of temporarily put them up to. Again, lots and lots of dodgy practices. Hopefully you can get the idea that clearly those things that you see there are dishonest, therefore not socially responsible. Just some examples to put out there for you. You might be aware of one or two of these, you might not. So these are some companies that actually found guilty of false advertising. False advertising clearly not being socially responsible. So Danone stated that its yogurt had nutritional benefits that other yogurts didn't. Impressed with the way that I'm saying yogurt instead of yogurt there. I'm certainly becoming Australianised after 17 years. They had to pay $45 million in a class action settlement. So that was pretty expensive for Danone to claim that their product had benefits that in fact it did not. New Balance, obviously the running shoes, one of their sneakers was sold with claims to help consumers burn calories. Seems a bit of a stretch. No studies confirmed that. And actually, the shoe turned out to be an injury hazard. I'm not quite sure why, but again, they were found guilty of false advertising around that. Oil of Olay, which when I was your age used to be oil of Ulay. I'm not sure why they changed from Ulay to Olay. But anyway, they showed the model Twiggy, British model there, who now is in her probably her 70s, I would guess. But they showed Twiggy wrinkle-free, obviously implying that her using this product was a contributing factor to that. But someone uncovered the original photo and it was clear that it had been very much retouched. And her face does not, in fact, look like that at all. So that was deemed to be false advertising. VW. There was a whole VW emissions scandal a couple of years ago to do with their cars. I'm not going to go into the details, but this was probably one of the biggest corporate scandals in recent history, I'd suggest. And at this point, VW reckons that cost them around $35 billion all up. Okay, so that would incorporate fines that they clocked up around the world in the various markets in which they operate, lost sales, fixing the problem, all sorts of issues. But that was hugely expensive. Operation for VW. This is probably one of my favorites, Red Bull. You won't see it anymore, but adverts a few years ago, a decade ago, Red Bull gives you wings was one of their slogans that they used. Some clever consumer in the States pointed out that, said, I drank a can of Red Bull and I did not grow a pair of wings. And they put together a bit of a class action, and in the end, Red Bull agreed to pay out $13 million including $10 to every US consumer who had bought the drink since 2002. No idea how you were supposed to prove that, but anyway, a pretty expensive exercise for Red Bull to go through because they had basically falsely advertised their product. Now, the second part of the key knowledge dot point there, it mentioned green marketing. Okay, so this is a relatively new concept, certainly not one that would have been around when I was your age. Basically, green marketing is all about advertising a product by highlighting its environmental or sustainability credentials, basically. So this is the idea of developing and advertising products based on their real or perceived environmental sustainability. Okay, so it's a strategy used to position your brand's product as environmentally friendly and sustainable to consumers. Okay, so it involves the use of apparent eco-friendly appeal in driving sales, and obviously this is a big thing these days. Everybody, I guess the awareness of the community, of the society, of the public in terms of the damage that we can and are doing to our planet is much, much greater than it's ever been. Most people now are on board with this idea that we need to be reducing our negative impact. So, that's why you see so much marketing and so many products focused on this idea of being sustainable, eco-friendly, and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. So this is just the idea of marketing focused on that, basically. The idea is you're convincing customers of the business's commitment to the environment and social responsibility in its kind of broader context, and obviously becoming popular, as I just said, because as a society we're becoming more and more aware of these issues. So basically, it's a way of the business saying to the public, buy from us because we have the same values as you. Okay, I mean, you could look at this cynically, of course, but it's very much a very active marketing strategy that a lot of businesses use. Obviously, the idea is to generate positive image, positive reputation, to generate an increase in customer base from that. But no, businesses that use this strategy must genuinely provide an eco-friendly product and have eco-friendly processes kind of backing it up. Otherwise, they could be guilty of greenwashing. Okay, so another term here, okay, greenwashing, and you don't want to be associated with this. That is the process of falsely advertising. Now, we just talked about false advertising before, and I gave you some examples of businesses that suffered the consequences of that. But this is specifically relating to falsely advertising products as environmentally friendly in order to persuade customers to buy them if they're actually not. Social and legal consequences can follow. So again, legal consequences, you could be taken for court for this, but if not, the social consequences could be equally damaging by people not buying a product anymore if they think you have been greenwashing. So some examples of practices here that allow business to engage in legitimate green marketing and avoiding greenwashing. Producing recyclable and environmentally friendly products. Okay, so basically making whatever it is that you're selling somehow sustainable. Using recyclable or renewable resources in the production of the product. So even if the product itself is not recyclable or environmental, at least make it using resources which are. You could also be reducing your energy and water usage in the production of the product, reducing the amount of harmful chemicals that are used in the product, particularly if they're going to end up in our waterways, that sort of thing. Minimizing your packaging, or if not doing that, producing packaging that can actually be recycled. And sourcing inputs locally to reduce the carbon footprint created during delivery. And again, that's something we've touched on. And again, we'll talk about that again in year 12 as it relates to a couple of other ideas as well. So just basically, just being genuinely eco-friendly and sustainable in the way that you operate your business, basically. If you do all of that stuff, then you can focus on some green marketing and you could not be accused of falsely advertising or greenwashing. And that wraps up this video, and it wraps up the entire outcome. So I will see you back here at the for the start of the next outcome 3, which is going to be looking at recruitment and selection in businesses. So I'll see you then. Cheers for now.